of Taiwan. I'm Ethan Liu with news from here in Taiwan and around the world. Taiwan's largest company, TSMC, reported record revenue of almost $27 billion in the fourth quarter of 2024. Reporter Chris Gorin was at its earnings conference in Taipei and said the company downplayed concerns about U.S. export controls on AI chips.
The world's largest chipmaker has reported record earnings for its last quarter of 2024, making it the company's biggest year yet. At its earnings conference here in Taipei, TSMC reported fourth quarter revenue of nearly $27 billion, a nearly 39% increase over the same period last year, while net income increased nearly 60%. 2024 was eventful for Taiwan's largest company, which saw big progress on its expansion in countries like the U.S. and Japan. It's responsible for producing more than 90% of the world's most advanced chips. And TSMC says that chips for high-performance computing, driven largely by AI, was by far its biggest area of growth last year. But there have also been hiccups. The company was found to have violated U.S. export controls when its chips were found in a processor made by Chinese tech company Huawei. And overnight, the U.S. announced a fresh round of regulations, which many believe are aimed at preventing such incidents from happening again. However, Chairman and CEO C.C. Wei said they do not expect the controls to significantly impact their operations. Wei also responded to news that Taiwan appears to have lifted restrictions on its most advanced 2-nanometer production outside of Taiwan, perhaps allowing production at its Arizona fab, and whether the next advancement in chips might premiere in its overseas facilities.
Ramping up introduce a new technology into manufacturing. The fab, the process is so complicated, so it has to be very close to the R&D people. We want to ramp up the same kind of technology in U.S., but that practically is a little bit difficult. So Taiwan will always be first.
The company is dealing with both record growth and political uncertainty, but it's optimistic that its winning streak can continue. Kama Xu and Chris Gorin in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has accused Hamas of reneging on parts of a ceasefire deal just hours after it was concluded and is now delaying a cabinet vote on it. Hamas says it's fully committed to the deal. It comes after earlier relief and elation in Gaza when Israel and Hamas agreed to stop hostilities over a year on from the start of a conflict that's seen tens of thousands killed. Rosin Gueneger reports.
Jubilation among Palestinians in the streets of Gaza as an agreement is reached for a ceasefire between Hamas and Israel. War has been raging here for 15 months, with Israel relentlessly bombing the enclave of 2 million people. The assault in response to Hamas's October 7th attack on the country, which left 1,200 dead. Now more than 46,000 people have lost their lives here, and after months of negotiations, an end to the bloodshed is finally in sight.
كل ساعة بنقول ندعي الله وتوقف الحرب، احنا يا جماعة بدنا نريح، بدنا نعيش بأمان ونشكر الله ونحمده، إلا في هذه الساعة سمعنا خبر كويس الحمد لله.
والله طرت من الفرحة، فرحان بس برضه في نفس الوقت زعلان إنه الواحد يرجع على بيته فاقد أحفاد، فاقد أبو، فاقد أخو، فاقد ابن عم، فاقد جيران، فاقد داره. ليش بدنا نقول؟ الحمد لله.
Mediated by Qatar and the US, the truce was reached in Doha and is set to begin in 3 days on the 19th of January, as long as it's approved by the Israeli cabinet. The initial 6-week phase will include the withdrawal of Israeli forces from central Gaza and the return of displaced Palestinians to the northern part of the Strip. Hamas will release 33 of the nearly 100 hostages still in their custody, including women, children, and elderly. In return, Israel will release 30 Palestinian detainees per hostage. Of the 251 people taken from Israel by Hamas on October 7th, 105 were released during a temporary ceasefire in November. After this upcoming exchange, Hamas will continue to hold more than 60 hostages, although tens of them are presumed dead. In Tel Aviv, where demonstrators had been asking their government to bring the hostages home, a mix of reactions to the news of the deal.
It's not a joy, it's a bitter relief, but it's going to be a huge relief whenever First of all, whenever I see offer. Secondly, whenever I'm going to see the last hostages crossing the border.
I'm afraid that our government, especially I'm afraid from our government, that they will do something wrong to stop the agreement.
The first 6-week phase will also see 600 truckloads of aid flow into Gaza daily, urgently needed in the enclave suffering from a humanitarian crisis with a lack of clean water, food and medical necessities. Outgoing US President Joe Biden held the agreement and the intense diplomacy under his administration that helped secure it.
This has been a time of real turmoil in the Middle East. But as I prepare to leave office, our friends are strong, our enemies are weak, and there's a genuine opportunities for a new future.
But President-elect Donald Trump has also claimed credit for the truce, which will come into effect just a day before his inauguration, saying it was his involvement in the last stages that pushed the deal through. An assertion that didn't go down too well with the outgoing leader.
Brooks, credit for this, Mr. President, you or Trump?
Is that a joke?
Once the reins in the US are handed over to Trump, negotiations over the second phase will begin, expected to include a permanent ceasefire and complete withdrawal of Israeli troops from Gaza. A third phase will then decide the long-term future of the enclave. But as its residents celebrate the temporary end to fighting, there is still much trepidation about the hurdles to come before they can finally put the war behind them. James Lin and Rosie Greninger for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan has executed its first prisoner in 5 years. Death row inmate Huang Lingkai was sentenced for the 2013 killing of his ex-girlfriend and her mother. He was executed Thursday night by shooting. It is the first execution since President Lai Ching-te took office last year. 36 inmates remain on death row. Taiwan's constitutional court last year ruled that the death penalty was partly constitutional and should only be used for the most serious crimes. Taiwan's Foreign Minister Lin Jialong is leading a large delegation to Palau for the inauguration of President Surangel Whips Jr. into a second term in office. Taiwan has been looking to shore up ties with the Pacific island nation, one of just 12 countries around the world to recognize its sovereignty. Rick Lauer brings us this report from Palau.
Here at the country's capital, Palau is inaugurating Surangel Whips Jr. into his second term as the country's president. This Pacific island nation is strategically important. It's home to just 18,000 people, but it has a defense agreement with the United States, and it's one of just 12 countries around the world that has official diplomatic relations with Taiwan. As he enters his second term, Whips has promised to diversify the country's tourism-dependent economy, as well as protecting the country's environment and natural resources. He's also said he's going to continue to stand up to China, which he says has been putting pressure on his country due to its stance on Taiwan.
We are truly grateful for the partnerships that have been strengthened in the last 30 years and over the past 4 years. We are grateful to the United States, Japan, Taiwan, Australia, and all our diplomatic allies who have worked with us and supported us through the most difficult times.
Diplomats and dignitaries from more than 30 countries are here at the ceremony. One of the highest level delegations is led by Taiwan's Foreign Minister Lin Jialong, as Taiwan looks to boost its presence here in the Pacific. Lin is leading a delegation of more than 50, including business people looking to invest in Palau.
We are like-minded people, and we share common values of democracy, freedom, respect for human rights. So we work together quite closely.
As he enters his second term in office, Whips has encouraged more cooperation and more investment from Taiwan. He's also said that Chinese intimidation against his country is increasing and that their tactics are changing, and that he'll need help from international allies to stand up to this threat. Alex Chen and Rick Lauert in Ngulmud, Palau for TaiwanPlus.
With the U.S. President-elect Donald Trump's inauguration just days away, the country's capital is getting ready for a transition of power. Leslie Liao reports from Washington, D.C.
High security here in Washington, D.C. as the U.S. gears up for President-elect Donald Trump's inauguration, which is in a few days. All this week, Trump's cabinet picks have been having their Senate confirmation hearings. On Tuesday, Secretary of Defense pick Pete Hegseth had his. Meanwhile, on Wednesday, 6 of Trump's cabinet picks had their hearings, including Attorney General nominee Pam Bondi and Secretary of State nominee Marco Rubio. Despite being one of the less contentious picks on Trump's cabinet, Rubio had his hearing disturbed by protesters during his opening statement.
Pause.
Taiwan will send a delegation to attend Trump's inauguration. Legislative Speaker Han Kuo-yu of the Kuomintang will be leading a group of lawmakers here to Washington, D.C. to shore up ties with this incoming U.S. administration. Leon Lien, Laurel Stewart, and Leslie Liao in Washington, D.C. for TaiwanPlus.
For more of the latest updates from the U.S. on Trump's inauguration, stay tuned to TaiwanPlus. A Taiwan-initiated Mandarin Center in Houston is seeking to fill gaps left by the closure of the Beijing-run Confucius Institutes. Jeremy Olivier visited the center and has this report.
Okay, so please say
Taiwanese national Zoe Zhuo is the sole Mandarin instructor at this language center in Houston. A native of Taoyuan in northern Taiwan, Zhuo came to Texas through a Taiwanese government program that sends qualified teachers overseas. But this is far from her first posting in the U.S.
大概是大3的时候，我有去旧金山的沉浸式中文小学教中文，大概是1个月左右。那当时是一个暑期夏令营。那除此之外呢，就是我也教过美国的空军学校，还有西点军校的学生。
The center Zoe teaches at is a collaboration between Houston's University of St. Thomas and the Wenzhou Ursuline University of Languages in Kaohsiung in southern Taiwan. It's the first of 4 centers established under a joint U.S.-Taiwan education initiative, aimed in part at filling the gap left by the closure of China-run Confucius Institutes across the U.S. Those centers, targeted by the previous 2 U.S. administrations over their ties to the Chinese Communist Party, once numbered around 100. But have dwindled since 2019 to fewer than 5, according to a 2023 government report. The director of St. Thomas's Mandarin Center, Ye Yaoyuan, says Beijing poured significant resources into the Confucius Institutes, something Taiwan has not been able to match. He says the Taiwan-initiated programs have to be practical about what they can achieve.
We want to fill the void, but most likely, currently what we're doing is we're trying to supplement to the Mandarin education or Mandarin teaching capacities across the world.
Ye says a large part of the center's mission is to bring Mandarin education, not just to St. Thomas students, but to the larger Houston community. To that end, it offers free classes on weekday evenings to anyone interested in learning the language. Still, the courses in Houston are not the center's only focus. Rather, its flagship program, sending students over to Wenzhou University in Kaohsiung for language exchange. Jade Batista and Carla Silva Mendez, both seniors at St. Thomas, were part of the summer 2023 group. They say studying in Taiwan helped them better understand the complex cross-strait relationship, something that may not have been possible had they gone to China instead.
Didn't know much of Taiwan or the tension between Taiwan and China going into this program. And so while I was there speaking to people from Taiwan, hearing their side of the story, hearing how they were feeling about it, it made me want to learn more about the conflict, because during this program I realized I officially wanted to go into international studies.
Though still growing, the center is already making a big impact, helping develop language skills and cultural knowledge among a new generation of learners. Devin Tai, Leslie Liao, and Jeremy Olivier in Houston, Texas for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. You can visit the TaiwanPlus website and follow our social media for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Finally, we lift off at an international hot air balloon festival in southern India. I'm Ethan. Take care, and I'll see you next time.